with me in studio our political editor Mzwandile Mbeje. We also do have Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, who's joining us. He's a political analyst, who's joining us virtually. Professor, a very good afternoon to you. I just want to start in here with you, Mzwa, because we had to quickly go get that response from the ANC. So what do you make of that response? Are you getting what you wanted to hear in terms of being decisive about this furor, Mzwa?
I think maybe it's the DA where I expected much more than what transpired, especially because, I mean, giving an ultimatum to the president, so it's something that is quite serious. And I think a lot of South Africans were actually suspecting that they are probably walking out of the DA. But of course, they are saying they are not taking part in the national dialogue. And anyway, if you have been listening to some of the organizations, as soon as the dialogue was announced, many of them said, well, they were against it for a number of reasons.
It's still under debate as to how it's going to proceed.
Yeah, so that for me didn't really raise a lot of, I would say, interest in terms of why they're doing this. But you can see they just fell short of actually saying what they wanted to say. I think one of the things they probably debated quite thoroughly in the FedEx was sponsoring a motion of no confidence in the president. But if that, for example, is a decision that they had made, so clearly I think they would have defined themselves outside of the GNU, because if, let's say, it succeeds, it includes you. So that was also another thing. And to speak about the ministers who are implicated in corruption and all those, I think they wanted to take a decision, but they were not brave enough. So clearly leaving it to the ANC. And this has basically somehow given ammunition to the ANC from Monday as they meet, as the NWC, preparing for the national executive meeting, I think on the 12th. So clearly, we now will anticipate the outcome of that NEC. We really want to hear what they have to say, given everything that is happening here. If there is no dialogue between now and then, between the ANC and the DA, so clearly that NEC could come out very differently. And perhaps that which the DA may have avoided, perhaps the NEC could confirm. You know,
Mzwandile, I want us to go further into this motion of no confidence, because we both just heard Mahlengu Bengu there saying very categorically that they've heard of plans by the DA to put forward this motion of no confidence. But I just want to quickly bring in Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Professor Breakfast, it's good to have you with us as always. So talk to me about what you make of these two presses, right? And I want you to focus on whether or not it should be the DA taking a stand and removing itself from the GNU, or the ANC, who leads the GNU and invited all the parties to the GNU, that should make a bold stand and statement and decide to remove the DA from the coalition?
Yeah, I don't think the conflict has been managed well by both coalition partners. And what this does, because now what we see two coalition partners throwing swords, you know, and crossing swords against each other in public. So obviously that escalates the magnitude of this conflict. I don't think, though, in the final analysis that the two coalition partners are going to go separate ways. I think they will find a way out. But what I find out of this is that both coalition partners, they are very childish. Both of them are at fault. And also, both of them tend to, this tit for tat, it doesn't do the country any good. Because it means, I mean, the DA says that, you know, the government has improved this and that because of its footprint. But at the same time, they are accusing the president of being petty. But when it suits them, they can be petty too. So it means that, to me, that both of them are putting themselves first before the national interest. They are both childish, in my view. Both of these political parties are not matured.
Mzwandile, I really want us to go back to that earlier point because this sounds like it's going to shape conversations, particularly going into that NWC as well. Should a motion of no confidence be tabled by, say, the DA, what happens in that regard politically?
Well, obviously, that will mean the death of the GNU as we know it. But at this stage, I think that's what they're still considering. And I think as the Prof has said there, you can see that we are really, as a country now, maybe in the bigger picture, still learning what coalition politics is. It's very challenging. It's got a lot of elements. And remember, it's people with the ideologies from the East and the North.
Very different.
And then they have to work together. So they are trying to find themselves, and they're trying to also muscle out each other at the same time.
We pointed these issues out, the ideological differences, vast ideological differences between these parties when they announced they will be forming a government of national unity. And we were very steadfast on pointing out the issues that will cause stalemates. And now when we come back to conflict resolution, the GNU in this case, it's not happening between the DA and the ANC.
Yes, and I think it's as a result, Alicia, of the South Africans. So what South Africans decided last year was that we shall give no party outright majority. It doesn't matter which strand of ideology you belong to, we're giving you this percentage. Then go out there, work together. So as leaders of the parties, it is upon them now to then take that leadership. Because, we can't all 60 million of us go to the union buildings and Cape Town and run the country. So we then hand it over to those that represent us through our votes to vote different strands of ideologies, then work that one out. And I think that's why I think the Prof is basically saying they are perhaps immature in how they are approaching the conflict resolution. But I guess with time, will be able to perhaps get to grips with the coalition arrangement. Look at what has been happening at the local level. Yes, we haven't experienced that at the national level, but you can see the elements. As recently as 2 days ago, the mayor was almost kicked out. And then if you count from 2016 to now, 9 mayors have already been kicked out already because of those motion of no confidence. Of course, others, it's not necessarily because of that. But yeah, you can see a lot that still needs to happen.
But then, Professor, how does this whole impact, the business of Parliament? You heard the DA there emphatically stating that they could be withdrawing from their daily input as well as participation in some of the parliamentary processes. And I also want you to also weigh in on that, Mzwai. Professor?
Yes, the DA, in my view, was not very cogent, nor were they coherent in their main line of argument, because what came across to me, it was like they are saying their struggle is going to have two phases. So phase one is that they are going to withdraw from this upcoming national dialogue. So that is going to be a phase one. Phase two is that they are exploring instituting this motion of vote of no confidence against the president. But then there is a contradictory argument there, because on the one hand, they say, no, but we can't do this because it will create a scope for this government to fall apart. Or I think they were implying that it might give rise to the EFF and the MK joining forces with the ANC. Therefore, they are going to put this idea on hold. But at the same time, they say, no, but if the president does not give in to what we want, then we will institute this. That's not a good argument. So your question then is, what does this do? What it does, it does pose a threat to the stability of this coalition arrangement. Because if you want to promote development for everyone, you need some kind of stability. But also their argument that they might not vote for this budget and that budget, I don't think it works that way. You can't have it both ways.
Sorry?
Yeah, no, it's a very difficult situation. I think the DA has put itself in, especially because of the public pronouncements. Perhaps they could have done some of these things, but once you go out and publicly say certain things that are near impossible to achieve in the current context, it places you in a very difficult situation. I mean, I think that's why you hear the contradictory statements. So you don't want to allow the coalition of the chaotic. I think that's how he put it. But if you sponsor a motion of no confidence, you are likely to then get that coalition because somehow, if you then have defined yourself out of this current arrangement, so other new parties will definitely come in. So if the ANC and the DA and other parties are not able to manage this coalition arrangement called the GNU, so I guess we'll continue to see these disagreements. But I guess this is the nature of coalition politics. It is worse in other countries. In fact, in our country, it's still very manageable, especially given that we are pretty new to this phenomenon.
Just as a parting shot there, Mzwai, I mean, there has been, in fact, in the president's response to the DA, actually explaining, which he doesn't have to explain as to why he's dismissing members of his executive. He did say the DA must put up a name for the replacement of the ex-minister. But even in this presser, they were asked who they could possibly put up for replacement. They are not coming up with alternative options.
No, I think maybe to be fair to them, they said they're just going to discuss the name, I think, in the FedEx, so they will then bring to the president.
But then, Professor, what do you think this means? Does this mean that, the DA could have communicated differently and better and not hold a gun to the president's head by saying, well, if you remove this individual, then you need to remove these two people? Because the president did say, well, I'm removing this person, but I'm not removing you from the portfolio. Just replace him with a different member.
So in the beginning, I thought that the DA has put up a good fight in terms of demanding some kind of answers from the president. I think it is their right to do that. I think the president was off the mark by saying that he is not duty bound to give reasons.
But he's not.
Because, I beg your pardon?
Is he?
Regardless of what the Constitution says, but in a democracy, you are accountable to the people. You can't make decisions, then you report to yourself. That is not right. Who voted you into power? So we have a right to know what happened. It is our right.
Mzwandile, what do you think about this? Because this has been the bone of contention as well.
I think I understand where the prof is coming from in terms of accounting to citizens. But let's be honest, the Constitution allows the president to fire and hire without explanation.
Without explanation.
That is his prerogative. But from the context in which you are placing it, I understand. But maybe the president went ahead and then explained. So the Constitution does allow him not to explain to us.
We're going to further this debate during the course of this bulletin. Thank you so much to our political editor joining me in studio here, Mr. Mzwandile Mbeje, alongside political analyst there, Professor Ntsikelelo. Breakfast.